welcome to this week's episode of the Still Chill podcast.
Hi everyone!
This week we're going to be talking about self-care and communal care, kind of where we're at with it, what it all means, and the importance of communal care and how we've kind of lost our way.
Oh, do you reckon? We'll go into that.
Yes. To begin with, I'm wondering, what do you understand as self-care?
I think self-care it's definitely a personal thing. So I feel like it's the things that you do for self-care are different for everyone. Mm-hmm. For me personally, it's very much, there's a lot of stuff. So my diet, it's how much sleep I get, it's how much I choose to socialize, meditation, all of that malarkey. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, anything that I do for myself that aims to benefit my well-being.
Yeah.
So anything literally brushing your teeth, showering.
Yeah.
That's all self-care to me. And within self-care falls self-help. So beyond the things that you need to do to physically take care of yourself, but the things that we're kind of being exposed to recently, like maybe say in the last 20 years, for our generation anyway.
Yeah.
Of all these self-help books and, mindfulness, as we were discussing last week, just booming.
Yeah. I mean, it's $1 billion industry now, so.
Exactly. So all of that stuff, anything that you do for yourself, by yourself, to look after yourself, that's what I understand as self-care. And that also means, going to therapy, you're doing that for yourself. Even though you're getting the support from someone else. But that's all self-care to me.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
If even from the brushing your teeth, and for me it's making sure that I cook myself meals every day and I do my laundry, and general chores I really think fall into my self-care routine, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what does communal care mean to you, Raha?
Ooh, that support from people around me, people that I can resonate with and I feel close to. I feel close enough to that I can share really intimate things, and I feel comfortable enough to just have any type of conversation that I need to have, basically. Mm-hmm. Love and support and guidance and assurance and all of that kind of stuff, I would say, is community care for me. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wouldn't agree with being able to tell them your most personal, intimate things. I think for me, community care or communal care is more about having a support network of people.
Yeah.
And people are constantly looking out for each other. They're supporting each other, whether it be financially, whether it be emotionally. For example, if you're cooking yourself a meal, cooking enough for the whole neighborhood. That would count to me as community care or communal care. And you see kind of little hubs all over the place, don't you? Wherever you live, there will be some sort of community centre or something like that. But I think as a society, especially in the West, I don't even know if we've ever had it really. I think we've definitely fallen off.
For sure, especially as immigrants, I would say.
Yeah.
And people who come from cultures where community care is so prevalent and it's so important. I think being in the West and not having that has such a huge impact. At least I know it has for us.
Well, do you know, I think one of the biggest ways that I see this manifesting in day-to-day life, here, is with my colleagues who have children.
Yeah.
And, the saying goes, it takes a village, and this is, the village really is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
The village is what we're talking about. And how they're really struggling without that support. And even, before, where they were able to reach out to their parents or their siblings, or, it doesn't just have to be family or friends to look after their children. It's almost like asking a favour, whereas before,
and you feel like you're creating such a burden on the people around you who you're asking, and it becomes such a big deal when...
But also because those people have their own individualistic lives that they're trying to stay on top of. Yeah. So it's kind of no one's to blame, but it's such a contrast to the way in which we grew up, where all this kind of support went without saying. Definitely. It's just woven into the fabric of our culture.
So with the it takes a village, what do you mean?
So, I mean, you have, like I said, like a network of people who offer unconditional support and love, obviously with boundaries.
For sure.
where they're needed, but at the same time, you know you can rely on a group of people as much as they can rely on you. And I think this is the important part as well, is that you don't just expect that from your community, but you're contributing to your community as much as you are
receiving
from them. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. It just becomes a two, and it sets an expectation, and I think that's what I love about it, because even though that can also create problems, which we'll go into that. It's almost just like people aren't just in it for themselves. You know, you're always gonna find a helping hand. All of those responsibilities and all of that stuff becomes shared.
Yeah.
And you know, we're social beings. I think it's a huge thing.
Exactly.
We need one another in order to thrive, and especially when it comes to raising kids. You know, you mentioned your colleagues. I just think it's so important, and so many people are missing it.
You're so right. We're literally neurologically wired, like biologically wired for this connection. We're pack animals, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, like we're really social animals. So what do you think is getting in the way, or what do you think has changed that's making us more individualized as opposed to community driven?
Oh, do you mean us personally, or are you saying generally?
Bit of both.
I think for us personally, it was moving to the UK more than anything, because we had a huge Persian community when we lived in Germany. Yeah. For those who don't know, we grew up in Germany, and we had so many friends and family around us who mom and dad would I don't want to say they dumped us on them, but, you know, you would just go to your cousin's house or, you know, your relative's house, and their parents would cook a meal for you and look after you until your parents were ready to come and get you. And that was totally normal. And you never felt like you were out of place. It was...
Yeah, or a burden even. It almost felt like family-like, you know? Like, it went without saying, they used to come to our house just as much.
Yeah, of course.
And that was literally it. Like, they had a support system, because they immigrated from Iran to Germany, they had to get used to a whole different system, and there was so much government stuff that, you know, they had no idea about, but they had friends and family who they could reach out to, who would help kind of literally hold their hand through it. Exactly. And they would hold other people's hand through it, because they were going through this common experience, but they had that support. And I think you're right, as soon as we moved here, they lost that, and we became that support.
Yeah. What, for the mum and dad?
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think in a general sense, it be capitalism. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what's doing it. I think in the West, like this individualist culture where it's kind of me, I, self. And, you know, the harder you work, the higher up you'll get. It's very much like...
Sorry, we're laughing because my dog has just done the smelliest fart.
I can't stand it.
No, it's cabbage. Carry on.
Just capitalism. That's what we were saying.
Yeah.
It's that competitive nature that you get brought up in, where it's gimme, you know, and people are very much in it for themselves, and there isn't as much. I mean, there's definitely community, just I wouldn't say it's anywhere near as much as other places.
I think from the minute you set foot in school, you're competing against each other.
Yeah.
So there's such a competitive nature. We're so given, like, the patriarchy and the way that we're supposed to look and be, and when that doesn't match up with who we are on the inside, we everyone's putting on this front to some extent. Like, we're not as relaxed in ourselves as maybe our parents' generation was. We're exposed to so much stuff on social media. We think that, like, we try and fit a mold essentially, but we're also trying to still compete against each other and be ourselves and thrive, and there's only so much opportunity and there's only so much this, that and the other, which, you know, is complete BS, but that's what's been drilled into us.
But then what do you mean with the patriarchy falling into that?
So when I say I mean like okay, the way that I see it is women are supposed to look a certain way. Yeah. You know, they're supposed to be slim.
Thick.
No, well, yeah, that's the new fashion. But, like, long hair, I don't know, all this stuff. Like, they're supposed to look a certain way, but also they're supposed to be, you know, look after the house and do that, and the other, which kind of they're old-fashioned principles. But given, you know, our experience with men, I think they still run quite
100%
quite deeply.
It's actually what they call like a double burden, where women now are still expected to like maintain that standard of beauty, still, you know, childbearing, look after the home, do all of the stuff that they would do traditionally, but then also go out and work.
Yeah.
So they're doing both things, and the dude is just out there working.
But not even that. So the patriarchy, I think, is also harmful to men, because men are also being put into this mold that they're supposed to be like, I don't know, like the highest form of success is to wear a suit and, I don't know, work in some sort of financial sector, and you can't be emotional, you have to be tough, you know, all that stuff that's harming men just as much as it's harming women.
Definitely.
Is, in my opinion, a result of the patriarchy and capitalism, like, combined.
Yeah.
So we're all, like, individually trying to kind of, we're trying to fit the mold, but also not. We're trying to keep our individualism. So there's a mold that's been put out for us, and then we're all like, no, I'm my own unique person.
Yeah.
Which is true. So we've got these unique tendencies and characteristics within us, but also, at the bare minimum, we're all human.
Definitely.
And this is the part of the connection that I think is missing for us. That's what's kind of keeping us away from the community care.
Yeah. And I think, sorry, just on that point where you mentioned about people being like, oh, but I'm so unique, I'm so different. I think marketing and advertisements and all of those things play such a role into that as well, because it's just selling you this idea that you're so different, buy this and you'll be even more different, babe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's making everybody feel as though this is what I need in order to make myself feel like I stand out and that I'm different to all of these people. But everybody is actually doing the same thing.
Whilst also selling to you that there's something fundamentally wrong
about you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There's something wrong with you.
Yeah, and just let it eat away at your self-esteem until women and men get eating disorders and body dysmorphia generally, and all kinds of things. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I mean, the numbers are staggering. And I think, social media is a direct result of that, but also it feeds off that, but also it's just the way that we're feeding into that as well, the way that we're choosing to run our accounts and this, that and the other, because ultimately we're the people, you know, we are the people. So we wanted to bring this conversation to the podcast because it seems like we're moving in the right direction, especially with the pandemic and like the things that I'm seeing. But also, it's something that needs to be discussed a bit further. So it's something
definitely, because I think people don't actually realise the importance and the value of community care because there's such a lack of it, especially in times like this where it's so important.
Exactly. And it feeds back into this compassion. Compassion. What's the word I'm looking for? It feeds into compassion.
Yeah.
It feeds into compassion. We've lost it a little bit because, you know, when you are concerned about yourself so much, because it's a means of survival, Raha. That's the other thing. Yeah. Like, we're not doing it because it's fun to do. It's a way of surviving.
And because we don't care about others. Yeah. Everybody cares about other people.
Yeah, until a certain point.
Yeah.
No one is born this way, I don't think.
No, not at all.
So, I think one of the ways in which we've experienced community care outside of like family and things is our mom has a chronic illness called MG myasthenia gravis, and she isn't able to work because her muscles just can't take it, essentially. And she was part of a group where we live, and they do DIY and they do sewing and they do all this amazing stuff.
Woodwork. She's doing all sorts. And she's so creative, so it was just perfect.
And honestly, the change in her mental health was just amazing. Yeah. And it's not because she was doing it by herself, but because she had somewhere to go every single week. There was a group of them, they were sitting, they'd have coffee, they'd talk, you know. And there is this common understanding, you know, that we're kind of going through the same thing, and that really helped. And the government cut the funding for it, and it's just been so hard for her. So that was a really nice example of how community care really helps people, and
especially when we're talking about immigration and somebody like mum who doesn't speak English very well and doesn't feel like she's integrated, let's say. When she's gone to those classes, she's really been made to feel like she belongs somewhere.
Part of something.
You know? And I feel like that belonging and meaning, you know, that's so, so important. And yeah, you just feel like you're a part of something and everybody sort of supports each other. And she would have conversations and her English was getting better, you know? Like it was all of those things that, I just thought were amazing. And it's just a shame that the government
doesn't value it.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, something that I did want to touch on was the way like New Age spirituality / the mindfulness movement is really feeding into individualism, because it's highly, highly focusing on self-care and self-help. Yeah. Right? So it's like, you're not in control of anything apart from yourself. You can only control your own reactions, this, that, and the other, which is so true. But you become almost stuck on focusing on yourself. Yeah. And when I did my master's, which is in mindfulness and compassion, it wasn't until we started doing the compassion modules that I was like, oh, like this is the missing piece. Like this is the thing that I just felt like I wasn't fulfilling when I had my mindfulness practice for like years prior. And you know, the idea is you can't give compassion until you cultivate it within yourself, until you uncover it within yourself. So you start with self-compassion and then it moves to spread that compassion to other people, because once you can be kind to yourself, you can see it in other people and you wish to be kind to them
the same courtesy.
By proxy.
Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. But don't you also think that can also become a problem? I think you're about to go on to this point, just that that person is then putting all the pressure and all the responsibility on themselves in order to make themselves feel better. Like it's solely my responsibility to improve my own mental health.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we'll post a Venn diagram on this. The way that I see it is you've got one circle that says self-care, and then you've got another circle which is communal care, and they overlap. And the part where they overlap is like the ultimate way, you know, like that's where the healing takes place. That's where you should be. And it's ridiculous to bypass the fact that our environment has such a great impact on the way that our mental health and well-being is. And there is so much that you can do for yourself, and self-help, yes, it does work, but ultimately, like, it's not just your sole responsibility. And you become fixated on yourself when you feel like something isn't shifting. Yeah. You know, and this is the issue. Like, we're all just so fixated on ourselves. We're living in, like, I think the most vain stage. And here's my thing, and this is really, and I'm not trying to diss at all. I just want to put this to the table, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But I remember in the early 2000s, right, when Kim K was just coming out, and you had Jessica Simpson, and Eminem used to take the piss out of these women in his music videos, which wrong, because he didn't do it to men, right? Yeah, like obviously. But at that time, it was just this new phenomenon. Yeah. Right? And, you know, you had your Britneys or whatever, but it was like the time of reality TV, or people becoming successful or becoming in a position of power just based off what they look like. Yeah. And I feel like that's our reality now. Like, that's especially normalized.
With social media.
That's the normal thing.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? And I think that has such an impact on the way people see themselves.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And their expectations of themselves. So, with the right support, community care, community validation, you know, I think the self-esteem issues that people are facing now would be addressed in a much more healthy way.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm saying.
I
can't get my point across in the way that it's looking in my brain.
I know what you mean. It's like there's been so much value placed on those external things that it becomes very difficult to work through them especially by society standards, that you need that community care in order to uplift each other. Is that what you're saying?
And here's the thing, like, you're like, oh, you're so vain, and, you know, yeah, sure, self-love, like, love yourself, da, da, da. But when that becomes your identity,
right, I see your point. Are you saying that it almost feeds into, like, narcissistic tendencies?
Just self-obsession, not even narcissism, because I think that's quite a broad, like, I think that's quite a specific term that I think is being overused, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think social media diagnosis is just the worst. But yeah, not narcissism, but self-obsession.
Okay.
And individualism, which is this, you know, this, it's individualism versus community care.
Yeah.
You know, not so much self-care versus community care. Mm-hmm. It's more individualism. And I think, this feeds into that. So
right, okay, yeah.
That's an issue.
Oh, yeah, massively.
And that's what, it's moving us away from community and looking out for each other.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I actually want to make a point that individualism is a Western concept.
Yeah, definitely.
Entirely Western concept. Yeah. And when you look at psychologists and you look at their work, like Maslow, for example, and his hierarchy, self-actualization
pyramid,
hierarchy of needs. Do you know what? Don't quote me on this. But yeah, self-actualization is at the top. So like he's saying the whole purpose of your life is to become self-actualized, right? Is for you to reach self-actualization.
Many psychologists also make that have that same theory. Like, if
it's all about you, babe.
Yeah. Right. You at the top, babe, and that's it.
Now, what's being missed here, and this is where we talk about decolonizing and decolonizing wellness, is that these theories are derived from indigenous models.
Yeah.
Right?
From indigenous traditions. Honestly, my mind was blown when I found this out.
Yeah. We'll link up the article that we're talking about. But the idea is that they're missing a huge chunk of what the original indigenous beliefs and practices were.
Yeah.
So in regards to self-actualization, like, it's a pyramid, but the pyramid at the top flips the other way around. So what you're reflecting within yourself, like what's happening within yourself once you've reached self-actualization, you're reflecting that back into your community and society. You know, that is a key part and key concept in so many indigenous traditions. Yeah, that Western psychologists are just completely missing. Yeah, or choosing.
They are they've derived it from the indigenous models. Yeah, and they have consciously chosen to actually just take that out.
Yeah. That's and the also madness. Not credit.
Yeah, obviously.
And this is obviously. But we talk about decolonizing, and that's why. It's because it's stolen information. Yeah. It's not credited, and I'm not under the impression that, you know, only people of certain cultures can practice certain things. Like, for example, like there's a whole shindig about yoga and how it's culturally appropriated, which I'm so 100% behind. Like, it is. Like, I heard about broga the other day.
Shut up.
No, bro yoga.
No. Oh my God.
Like, things like that, right? That is just pure disrespect, in my opinion. Like, really, it is. And
I've never heard that.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff. And I'm not saying that, you know, only people from India should be allowed to teach and practice yoga, but they should definitely be the leaders of the field. Yeah, they should definitely be acknowledged and given credit to. Definitely. You know, oh my God, without, and this is where we're talking about the appropriation, is when people aren't given credit to. It's when this information is like, oh my God, look, like, we've just discovered this, like, how amazing, like, it's amazing for you, and then putting a Western spin on it, you know, and then making out that it's this brand new thing. Like, it's not.
Yeah, definitely. And that comes with so many and it's healing practices that people do. They're almost all indigenous practices that people have just taken, and they're like, wow, have you tried ayahuasca? Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's like, hello? Do you know where this comes, like...
Yeah, and doing it wrong and harming people.
And also, remember, like, actually acknowledging and recognizing the religious and all of the foundations spiritual of those practices, because those things go hand in hand. There's a reason.
Well, they're whole systems, and this is the thing. And what's being done is like a tiny part of something is being taken. And what do you call it? It's called spiritual shopping.
Spiritual shopping. When you take spiritual shopping is more when you just take different ideas and beliefs from different religions. You kind of pick and choose what it is that you believe in and what you don't, as opposed to appropriating something.
Got you. I just think, and again, it feeds back into this individualistic point. It's this idea that you have to be successful.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
So the people who are doing this think that this is their way in. This is the way to get to the top, Mm-hmm. And even though they might think that they're helping people, they're doing it because it's their career,
Yeah.
And it's rude.
It is rude. Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think we could be doing to encourage community support and communal care more?
I believe, for me, because I always struggled at school, at uni, to find people who I felt were like-minded and that I resonated with. And I found that the more I did, the more stuff that I actually enjoyed and that I believed in and I liked, the more people that I met that were like-minded, etc. So I think it's just really important to make sure you do what you think is right for you and seek out those people will come to you. And then I feel like it's just about creating your own community around that, and making sure that if you are doing any kind of self-care practices and stuff, you do it to a point where you can extend that to other people. Do you know what I mean? Showing compassion to everyone, supporting each other, like reconnecting with people that you think that you've lost touch with. Yeah, it's actually, I'm saying all of this stuff. I still feel like it's something that I'm very much still working through, and I still haven't found my community.
Here's my thing, and I agree with you, and I see it in this way as well, but I'm not sure if it's the right way to see it, where you're like, oh, your community needs to just be people who think like you.
No, yeah, I agree.
Right? And I think, again, this is something that we're seeing happening as a result of social media, where we're moving away from community care and becoming more individualized. And it's
I guess you
culture.
Just create your own, cancel culture, and you create your own bubble.
Yeah.
Where people only reinforce the same ideas that you have. It's an echo chamber.
Like, this is our issue, me and you. We're so supportive of each other, and we're very open. We have, I think, such a ridiculously good relationship, but we do reinforce each other's BS.
Oh my God, without a doubt. Jesus Christ.
And I think with cancel culture, for example, you can't have a different opinion to everyone else. We've lost this mutual respect, this mutual understanding. And I'm not talking about highly political things, like whether people should live or die. I think that's ridiculous. Or even racism. I don't play with that shit.
Yeah.
But there are things where we're just shoving, and I do this a lot, where we just close the door on people because we're I don't like this, or I don't like this about you, and this does not need to be in my space or in my energetic field right now.
Which someone has a tone with me, and I'm like, that's it.
Sure, but we have to understand that we've all had very different life experiences, and we're all still learning and working on ourselves.
Sorry, the dog is
doing bits today. And I just think we're so quick to just not be up for it.
And and on that, I think a huge thing that I've learned, especially in the last year, which I'm still practicing, is forgiveness. Forgiving other people. And understanding, and I think it's really important to consider people's intention a lot of the time, and understand that even though they may not be educated on X, Y, Z, or they may have said this in the wrong context, or it's something that you just simply don't agree with, look at their intention and actually try and see whether they're being genuine or not genuine, and correct them if they're wrong. Forgiveness is so important, because when you learn to forgive other people, you'll forgive yourself too, babe. It's one of them.
Well, I think it goes the other way around. I think you forgive yourself first, and then you can forgive other people. Yeah, I think,
Yeah, I think so too, actually.
I think it always starts internally.
Yeah.
And when you can do something for yourself.
I think maybe that's why I'm struggling so much.
You do it to yourself, babe.
Yeah. But yeah, forgiveness, huge. Because I was always one of those people that could hold a grudge very easily.
Yeah.
I had no problem holding a grudge against people for years.
Yeah.
And that was definitely always my ego protecting myself and telling me that I was better off.
Yeah.
When in actual fact, I was hurting myself and those people too.
Yes. You're absolutely right.
And I'm not giving them the space to learn and to make mistakes.
This is it.
And just self-development and growth in general, I think when you forgive people, you actually give them that room to do that.
Of course. Like, how do we expect everyone to be perfect self-actualized humans? Like, there needs to be, like... It's really important to give people that space, because how are we expecting people to just be perfect? You know, we all... Like, if I think back on my teenage years and, like, the stuff that I did and the stuff that I said, and to think that people could have just been like, no. Yeah. Never again. You know, you're cancelled.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, it's just ridiculousness. Absolutely.
And you have to give people, you know, recognize and learn things at completely different times.
Yeah,
just because you're at one stage doesn't mean that the next person is.
And we're so polarized, you know, and I do massively believe in, you know, the Cambridge Analytica scandal and the way that, like, that's being intentionally done to us on social media.
Yeah.
Us getting polarized. And I think we need to just be really mindful of that there is an incentive behind us hating each other.
Yeah. And
being mad at each other.
Oh, for sure. For anyone who doesn't know about Cambridge Analytica, watch The Great Hack, is that what it's called, on Netflix.
Really good. And the way, you know, our data is used and misused, essentially abused.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on actually creating community. So reaching out and literally going out of your way, putting the effort in to do something for other people without the expectation of something being returned to you.
Yeah.
And actually someone who I'm going to shout out is Sophie, who's my manager. And she is a really good example, because for as long as I've known her, about 3 years now.
Yeah.
And she's always been someone who really goes out of her way for other people, like people in her community, so to speak. And she's just, for the longest time, she just never received anything back. Mm-hmm. And she was so frustrated, like, should I just stop bothering? Like, no one gives me the any respect, credit, you know, or any credit, or, you know, it's just not it's not reciprocal. Yeah. So it was like she was just giving. And obviously, I'm not saying to keep doing that, because you have to understand, you know, you have to set your boundaries and you have to know your limits. And
Definitely.
You have to be like, okay, well, this person is just no longer deserving of this.
Yeah.
But she's now in a place where she has this amazing community of women who are kind of like, they're all very different, but they all have the same mission in mind. Yeah. And I feel like because she persevered, she got the community that she always so desperately desired.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's so nice. And I think it's really important to not allow that to, like, if it's not reciprocal and you're not receiving the things that you're giving out, that's your character.
Yeah.
You know? Don't let other people's actions take that away from you until or unless it becomes a burden to your everyday life and you feel like it's impacting you in a negative way. Yeah. Then you set your boundaries.
Exactly.
But I don't think that you have to reflect other people's behaviour. Like, do what you know is right in your heart
100%.
And treat people with the compassion that you know you have.
Yeah. And they deserve, you know.
Yeah, even the people who aren't giving it back or aren't willing to give it back doesn't mean that they don't deserve it.
Yeah. Definitely. I do think, because I know there are some psychologists who are just like, inner work and mindfulness and things, it's not the end all be all, because we still have to live within a society and the rest of it, which I do completely agree with.
Yeah.
But I do think it's the first step. I think you need self-awareness in order to know your best qualities, know the parts of your shadow, your shadow, so that you can recognize it in other people and accommodate to them
accordingly.
And I don't mean like live for other people, not at all. And I think that's the downside of too much community.
Yes, which we haven't actually talked about yet, because there is a downside.
Yeah.
When you're too enmeshed.
Enmeshed.
Although
that is a Western term.
Oh.
Because do you remember when the holistic psychologist kept talking about enmeshment, and I was like, Raha, I think we've got an enmeshment problem. And then looking at like
other immigrant families,
our culture, and being like, no, this is normal.
Yeah, we actually just know each other's business, and we're very much involved in one another's lives.
This is just normal where we're from.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's helpful, and we've got a support system. Like, oh my god, I can't believe I wanted to get rid of it. You know.
So I think one of the problems with too much community, or being too involved at times, is when it becomes like a massive burden to you, because that expectation is then set for you to help other people out the same way that they help you. It can create a huge
absolutely problem. When it becomes your identity and people place that expectation on you. You're so right.
And I only ever really experienced it firsthand, obviously within our own family, but any of my brown friends that I had at school and at university, it was always, you know, we'd be sat revising or working on something that had to be in the next day, and they would be like, no, I need to go and do this for my brother. No, I need to go and do this for my mum. They're just running errands constantly, and
it's expected.
That can really hinder whatever mission you're on or whatever you're trying to do.
And then also behaving or like not doing certain things because reputation within the
just
community.
Conforming, I think, to that expectation of whatever I think that becomes really hard, trying to constantly uphold this particular image of yourself because you're so concerned about what other people are going to say about you. We've dealt with that
definitely
with our family so much, especially when it comes to social media, what you can post, what you can't post, and if religion gets involved, bruh,
that's a whole other thing. You know?
It's I think that's really difficult, and boundaries are so important with that, I think.
But again, that brings me back to that Venn diagram where individualism and community care are both great, but it needs to be the middle.
But it can be really difficult, I think, if you are part of a big community. Like, I would say the South Asian community, especially in the UK, is really, really big.
Yeah.
And I think it can be really difficult, especially for young women, to navigate what it is that they tolerate and what they don't tolerate, and having to communicate that with their community and acting. I think that's really, really hard. So shout out you ladies.
Because I think you're met with resistance and pushback when you try and be individual. And again, that's why you do need to keep your needs at the forefront of things. But also not completely isolate yourself. And I think that's what we're trying to say, isn't it? I think we're saying, like, don't just completely isolate yourself, because there's so much that you can gain from community.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we have massively lost that, especially in the last couple of years with like the rise in social media and technology. People
we've gained and we've lost. I think again it's very different generationally. Okay, this is a whole nother conversation, but we're going into it, guys. I think there's a part of us, for our generation, like, I had social media from when I was like 12 years old, right? Started with Bebo, then you had like MySpace and the rest of it. And for us, it's a way of like showing ourselves, right? And it is the same for everyone else. But for our parents, for example, they've reconnected with people they haven't seen in 50 years.
Yeah, like mom and dad have reconnected with so many people.
And they are so isolated in the UK.
Yeah.
And it is so wonderful for them to have a sense of community, but it's in their phone. And it does stop them from being present.
Yeah. They're in their phones constantly, non-stop. Because they are seeking that community, but ultimately it is hindering them because it's too much community, not enough individualism. Exactly. And it again plays into that whole, oh my god, what are these people going to think about me if I post this?
Yeah.
Oh no, make sure you don't comment this on this person's blah blah blah. Oh my god, I can't believe she added you but didn't add me. You know, these are the conversations that go on in our house, and it's like, whoa, you know how times have changed in just such a short period of time. I think it's crazy.
Yeah.
But we're all in it, and we're all in it together.
And here's the thing, it's not like social media isn't as evil as I think I'm portraying it out to be, but I think we just have to have these conversations so we can bring awareness to our behaviours and our actions and our way of thinking, and ultimately work towards a more harmonious balance.
Oh, for sure. And actually putting in the effort for things that are lacking at the moment, like community.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
People don't actually realise that these things take effort.
Exactly. It's effort. Exactly that. Yeah. And we need to reconnect.
Yeah.
Physically, like literally. Yeah. I don't just mean,
which is difficult,
phones.
like in the pandemic and the lockdown, so.
But that's why we did our giveaway.
Yeah.
Recently, like, I don't know when we're going to air this, but we did a giveaway and it was, based in affirming other people and nominating someone else, so that in a time where we're so isolated, we can show each other that we're thinking of each other, we care for each other, and, all of the good stuff.
Exactly.
And the response has been just amazing.
Yeah, it's been lovely.
Okay, so before we sign off, my question to you is, what's your song of the week, Raha?
To be honest, I've been listening to a lot of Kanye again.
Have you?
Talking about cancel culture, lol. Yeah, just late registration, the entire album. I can't just name one song. I've just been rinsing the album.
Why and how?
Hey Mama, maybe.
Why do you think that's helped? In which way has it helped?
It just takes me back to a time in my life. It's very nostalgic for me. I think especially in weird times like this, I actually gravitate towards familiarity and things that bring me comfort. So I think that's why I've listened to it again. And I actually just love him as an artist. I love that album. I love all his albums, but apart from Jesus, but yeah.
Nice.
What's yours?
Tough. I actually don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely in it.
I'm gonna say this week just because, it's been a real good feel. It's been a feel good song. It's Ty Dolla $ign, Kanye, Skrillex, and FKA Twigs. Ego Death.
That is a banger.
It's just one of them.
It's just lit. It's lit.
It's actually very unlike my music taste because it's very deep housey, isn't it? But
you love you some Ty Dolla $ign.
Okay, no.
You do.
Don't air my business like that, okay? But yeah. Okay, so that takes us to the end of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I know this one was a bit longer.
Yeah. And maybe quite a lot of info, to be honest. We did chat.
We did chat, yeah. So we'd love to know your thoughts on this, and we'd love to have any sort of feedback.
Oh, definitely, because like we said, we definitely kind of reinforce what one another think, and,
Yeah, and sometimes we do just talk drivel.
Yeah.
So, let us know, and we'll see you next week for the final episode in this series.
Yes.
Enjoy your week.
Bye.